IoT by businesses in particular. So just very briefly explain TrackMyRisks and how companies like yours can help in IoT in commercial lines insurance.
Okay, so the first thing to bear in mind with commercial clients is that the majority of them have these devices installed already. We're talking about IoT devices today and it will be new and how do we get these deployed and how do we overcome privacy issues, etc. Feeling very old now. Back in '96, I used to work in commercial property for Glaxo, and I remember distinctly the day we had the engineers in installing fibre optics to connect up our building management system to our HVAC. So 20 plus years we've been collecting this sort of data. We might not have connected it to the internet because the internet didn't really exist at that time, but we're collecting the data. But the issue is that data is siloed. So the maintenance department have a silo of data, the IT department have a silo of data. They're the ones receiving the distress signals from the UPSs saying we've lost power to the comms room or the computer suite or whatever. We have things like Pingdom going out and talking to our various web domains and seeing whether they're available or not. And all of those things are creating signals. They are signals that are in silos within our organisations that we insure and are certainly not visible to the majority of our insurers where that might be relevant, because the frequency of those distress signals, the governance, the maintenance, all of those things are components that will lead up to a claim. You know, the fact that a company is doing sort of radar detections on distribution panels in warehouses or industrial units, you know, if they're seeing hotspots and they're doing that regularly, preventative maintenance will stop that overheating turning into a fire. So a lot of this can be gathered already, but you've got to ask yourself the question, as an end consumer or a business, why would I want to share that with my insurer? So our view with TrackMyRisks is to give that end customer, that business owner, a compelling reason to start mapping this data, all these data points within their organisation, and something to connect that into. So we're doing that in partnership with insurance brokers and insurers to address a whole bunch of use cases, but ultimately it's about moving the client relationship from an analog relationship into a digital one. So at the moment, the majority of insurers might see the content of the proposal form. Commercial insurance is typically through an intermediary, so the broker is probably going to see more detail, but they've got a proposal form, and when they collect all the policy documents in at renewal time, they fire an email with a few attachments on it, and typically anywhere between 5 and 50 attachments to an average client. And unless there's a claim along the way, probably see each other again in 9 months to start the renewal process. So although the industry says, you know, we want to be close to customers, we want to understand the risk, we want to help mitigate risk and get our loss ratios improved, etc., the reality is the audience knows very little about its customers that it supports. So it's about getting closer. The other point I would say is we can accumulate all of this data. I'm going to say the C word now to the audience. We don't have context. So the fact that the leak detector has gone off and the warehouse is flooded, and that's on risk with us, great, we know that, or we might want to reserve. But we don't actually know what's going on in that warehouse or in that office. So what processes have been interrupted, and consequently what's the business interruption loss likely to be? And the work that we do with customers, we take that right down to the day. So a good example of that is if I'm running payroll as a process for 10,000 staff, I might do that in the 3rd week of the month. So in the 4th week of the month, if an event occurs and payroll process is interrupted, no loss, no problem. Few people go home. If it happens on the middle of the 3rd week, I can't run payroll, my staff don't turn up to work in the following week, which happens with recruitment companies and things. So it's all about the context, because that's how we'll know. When we hear that trigger from that device, we know what's broken, why it's broken, and what the likely impact is of that breakage, and we can assign the right level of resource to fix that problem. And I think that's what I mean by context and the level of intimacy we need to get with our customers. And I think only technology, well, I know only technology can do that. You cannot do that manually. I've tried, and it will drive you mad very quickly if you try and track those data points manually with a client. So I think that's why I'm so tremendously excited about what IoT and connected devices are going to do for us.
Okay, thank you. We'll get to some questions now, because there's some good ones coming in. I see Nick Rhodes is back. We had Nick Rhodes and Simon Le Bon downstairs. So one way of getting your question asked is by getting lots of likes. Another one, I have to say, is by making up amusing names. But there's a question about GDPR. We are going to get to that. It's the last panel of the day, but I'm not going to do it now because we're definitely going to ask that question next time. There's a question here about IoT's reliance on connectivity being the biggest risk. I mean, you've already mentioned that, but do you have anything to add on the fact that without connectivity, you know, these boxes which you are becoming more reliant on don't